The movement of the week is dumbbell snatches. This is a great explosive exercise, so if we're looking to gain a little bit of power, a little bit of speed in our overall functionality, this is a great exercise for you to try. It is a hinge-based movement, so loading up into the hips, hinging back far enough into our hips so that we feel our glutes and our hamstrings engaged and keeping a nice flat back. Generally, with a dumbbell, we're going to have the weight in our hand at about shin height in that good hinge position. Once we feel good and strong here, and we're not letting the weight rotate our shoulders, we're square to the ground, we're going to violently extend our hips. Boom. Right as the hips get extended, we're going to add in the high pull, so elbow pulls up higher than the shoulder. The combination of the hip extension and the high pull should make this weight feel like it is floating to an overhead position. Elbow should be nice and locked out. You should be nice and stacked. Wrist over elbow, elbow over shoulder, shoulder over hips, knees, ankles, so forth. If you're out of alignment, that weight's gonna feel a lot heavier. Your potential for injury will go up. If we have a good hinge position and we have good explosive hips and good timing with our elbow, we also need to have good overhead mobility and stability. So a good test would be to grab a weight you're comfortable with, lock it out overhead, which would be one test. Can I lock out my elbow completely overhead with my ear in line with my bicep? If you can, then you're safe to go ahead with snatches. If not, we probably have tight pecs, tight lats, even into triceps, biceps. We need to work on some mobility to help that overhead range of motion and stability. So the most common mistakes I see are an early elbow pull. That's when we're pulling out of sync. We're not letting our hips come all the way through before we extend our elbow. So people will tend to pull their elbow before their hips come all the way through. This is essentially negating all the power that you could have produced with your hips. So let your hips do most of the work. If you need to practice doing basic single arm deadlifts to ensure that you're finishing that movement before the arm comes into play, do it. Another thing would be to try deadlift high pulls. Essentially the same mechanics, you're just not going overhead. This will train you to extend hips, then pull elbow. Extend hips, then pull elbow. You ingrain that pattern, and then the snatch will come very easy. The second most common problem with the snatch is a lack of speed or power through the hips, and this will cause the weight to stall out before you get to overhead extension, meaning you'll have to press the weight to finish the lift. Two things happen. One, we have too much weight, or one, we just didn't have good mechanics and we didn't have enough speed with our hips. So again, go back to that deadlift high pull as practice to make sure we're syncing those two movements up, or lower the weight till you get the mechanics down and then proceed to having that heavier weight. But you should always end the movement with a locked out arm. There should not be a press involved. If you've seen a lot of success with your dumbbell snatches and you want to progress, we can add a second dumbbell, so a dual dumbbell snatch. This is much harder. Obviously there's more weight, but now we are dealing with two different weights overhead, so a lot more stability and range of motion is needed here. So make sure we've tested our mobility before trying a dual dumbbell snatch. Remember, this is an explosive movement. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to work on your overall athleticism and explosiveness. So give it a try this week. We'll see you next week.